Covenants are important to the ways of our being in congregation, to our doing church as a community, to our living in ways of togetherness. In 2017, I preached 3 sermons on covenant the month after I began my work as the Toledo Unitarians minister, and long before we had a video presence at First Unitarian Church of Toledo. In 2024, when bringing a new sermon on covenant, I slightly revised and recorded the 3 earlier sermons. As a companion to the 2024 talk on congregational covenants, with the help of our producer-director Walter McGee and production assistant Julia McGee, who is also the acting president of our church board, I have included the 2017 talks as bonus content. In Gatherings by Marta I. Ballantine. In gatherings, we are stirred like the leaves of the fall season, rustling around sacred trees, tossed hither and yon until we come to rest together, quietly, softly. We come to gather strength from each other. We come to give strength to each other. We come to ask for strength from the Spirit of all that is and is not. When our hearts sing or when they frown, it is the way of compassion telling us to give. It is the way of peace telling us to share our gifts, for we are happiest and most powerful when love is made apparent in and through us. Spirit of the circle that is love, as we twirl in this dance that is life, we give thanks for reminding us each day of our task of ministering to each other with a searching glance, a safe touch, a generous smile, a thoughtful word. Thank you for reminding us that we are always building our beloved comunidad. Thank you for reminding us that through our covenant with you, we covenant with each other and are made whole. In gratitude, we celebrate with open hearts and minds. We discover who we are, separate from each other and within one another. In this circle that holds all life, may we ever work toward widening its boundaries until there are none. Amen. Paz, blessed be. In the introduction to the book, Redeeming Time, Endowing Your Church with the Power of Covenant, published 25 years ago by the Unitarian Universalist Association's Skinner House Books, Walter Hertz, the lay leader who edited the book, wrote, "Almost 400 years ago, a small band of hard-headed idealists landed on the shores of Massachusetts and implanted a revolutionary idea, the free church. They formed autonomous, self-governing congregations that counseled and supported each other. Covenanting in those congregations, the process of the members learning to live together in loving and supportive relationships, or right relation, gave them extraordinary power, guided in action by the vision of a city set upon a hill, the biblical reference for the perfect new Israel the Puritans envisioned that their community would become. And that vision helped to shape a new nation, to win its independence, to create its republican form of governance, and to serve as its social justice witness for many decades. Culturally and spiritually," Hertz continued, We Unitarian Universalists are descendants of those idealists, inheritors of their vision. Hertz equated covenanting with congregational polity, the way free churches govern themselves, past, present, and future, and stated the book is about our freedom to thrive institutionally, to serve one another and our children well, and to serve the world together. It is about what we will pass on to our spiritual descendants. He defined covenant as the common understandings, agreements, and promises made by the members of a congregation that define their mutual obligations and commitments to each other as they try to live their faith and vision. In 1999, Hertz claimed Unitarian Universalists were at a critical point in the evolution of our faith. For too long we have been, and are now, he added, less a religious faith than an agglomeration of loosely clustered, high-minded individualists. We have tended to regard our tradition of congregational polity as freedom from institutional responsibility and effectiveness. We are individual overachievers and institutional underachievers. 25 years later, I say, we still have a critical point. How does our church continue? Unitarian Universalism and the Toledo Unitarians, both in us as overachieving individuals and in our organizations as underachieving institutions. In a changing society that is turning away from traditional religious practice in growing numbers, in part by reclaiming covenant. In this series of sermons, I've been talking about covenant, encouraging that we look at covenanting as one of the ways to structure our being together as a congregation, living in right relation to hold our religious values highly and, as Hertz wrote, to live our faith and vision. We looked at free thinking in covenant to gain an understanding of how covenant's sacred foundations, according to scriptural stories, can have a place in our always forming religious ways of 21st century Unitarian Universalism, and our attention to religious pluralism, including spiritual belief and unbelief, the different relationships between science and faith, and the divine as supernatural reality or human-formed story, having people with all of these differences sharing the identification as Unitarian Universalists in religious practice under one roof. We examined covenant and ministry in the frame of all of us being ministers by taking our Unitarian Universalist values into the world and living our liberal religion, as well as forming ways that I, as the called and settled minister, can be in covenant with you and you with me. With this talk on congregation and covenant, I have primarily words of encouragement. Let's be conscious of covenant. And even where we don't have covenant, I ask that we live as if we do, knowing that we always have what we call our great covenant, to dwell together in peace, to seek the truth in love, and to help one another. We're a religious assembly, which means there's a mixture of the longtime members, new people coming in and joining us in the hope they've found a long-time place. And there are also people who leave us for myriad reasons, including end of life, changing theologies, geographic moves, and even just waning interest. We have seekers and some who have found. There's the paradox of everybody working to become Buddhas, kind of, while already having Buddha nature. We live some of the aspects of Jesus in both love and resistance. Our covenants should include the realization that we're different in so many ways, but we can be radically hospitable in the recognition that we can be kind to all and welcome the strange and difficult as well as the familiar and easy. And knowing that we're abled in a variety of manners. Covenants aren't exactly rules, and they're not really guidelines either. Maybe at core, they're a recognition of how we do or want to live together in our best selves, knowing that we're always in the midst of change and having covenant as a continuing resource. We'll be making a lot of changes going forward at First Unitarian to incorporate technology and attend to contemporary comforts in the way we do church here, as well as to position ourselves for new people while also trying to respect the familiarity of our seasoned settling in. To have our grounding, we need to look back and re-emphasize covenant, then work with the covenant concept as a congregation to make it supportive of our mission and vision. We have bylaws, and I feel fortunate that we don't have them memorized and cite them whenever something comes up that might not be exactly according to Hoyle. As if church governance is a game and those are the rules for winning congregational polity. Covenant, you might say, is considered behavior, how we best work out living together in awareness of our different ways. It's how our congregation can congregate. My joke about being the called minister has been that in our time between settled ministers, I worked with the congregation to encourage and develop its being lay-led. And once that happened, I could step in and be the minister. There's truth to that, though, because of the way I work. Rather than minister as Savior, who if you follow my plan, you can get into heaven, I prefer minister as traffic director, helping you get to where you want to be safely and with minimal congestion. You're moving all around me, and I hope I'm not an obstacle. I guess I wanted to make sure you were living the Great Covenant, that you already had peaceful dwelling, loving truth, and mutual help before I accepted your call to be your minister, because making that happen isn't the ministry I can do well. Helping to direct us in continuing health, though, with ideas about how we might find and show our best ways while we try to change the world, or at least our part of the community, is a full-time ministry. And with your covenanted support, I can do that. Covenant helps us to have a relevant church that both offers spiritual support and advances social justice. We need to be active about covenant, though, to make it work for us. Meet in groups and as a congregation to consider what and how we covenant. Make your own individual covenants, even the one-sided kind that are more agreements between you and the universe rather than the mutual promise of the covenants we try to live. And consider that there's also a covenantal aspect to our money, our support of First Unitarian and Unitarian Universalism. Keep your pledges current so the church can hold its own in the ways that promises have no effect, but cash does. Unitarian Universalist minister John Nichols said early in 2017, "Liberal congregations survive because they recognize they are united by an unwritten covenant. The covenant I speak of is a promise we make to one another that we will support the church as an institution, recognizing that our level of support may have to be increased over the years. If this covenant is faithfully kept by most people, the congregation prospers. If the opposite is the case, the congregation enters into a descending spiral with painful decisions having to be made each year. In this time in our nation's history, every justice-seeking congregation counts for a lot. And I hope you'll give your full attention to this one." He wasn't speaking about the Toledo Unitarians specifically, but I add my hope that you give your full attention, including all dimensions of support, to this congregation in covenant. I call on us not to stop the attention to covenant here with these words from the pulpit, with my proclaiming the importance of covenant, but then seeing us file the concept away in our archives. My words aren't a reflection on our covenantal history. No, they are a call to action. Please, you pick up on these sermons' introduction to covenant and develop covenanting into how we live church. Form covenant groups to help the board consider what might be formal, written, structured covenants and informal, spoken covenantal agreements. And make your own covenants as a way to weave the concept into daily life. Develop the categories of covenants we need. I think special attention might go to a covenant on right relations that we can refer to when behavior doesn't seem right for our community and to guide our togetherness in difference. And another covenant that might help us live according to the high ideals we put on paper, understanding that our liberal religion can be at odds with society and will have many times of resistance and only minute change, but also relieving times when our ways prevail and do prevail. In covenant, so be it.